Have you ever left a conversation feeling strangely exhausted? Not because you worked hard, not because your body was tired, but because someone had quietly stolen your peace. Maybe you've met people like this. Every conversation becomes a complaint. Every success you share becomes something they minimize. Every dream you express is met with doubt. Every mistake you make becomes another reason for them to remind you why you'll never be enough. And somehow, after spending just an hour with them, you no longer recognize yourself. Your confidence shrinks, your energy disappears, your mind becomes heavy. The strange part is this: they never touched you, they never raised a hand, they never shouted, yet somehow you leave feeling wounded. So let me ask you a question. How many people are living inside your mind, rent-free? Think about it. How many voices echo through your thoughts every single day? The friend who always criticized you, the relative who never believed in you, the colleague who constantly competes with you, the partner who makes you question your worth, the stranger whose opinion somehow still matters. You may have left the room, but somehow they never left your head. That is the true cost of emotional drain. It doesn't end when the conversation ends. It follows you home. It sits beside you while you work. It whispers to you before you sleep. It wakes up with you the next morning. Eventually, you begin carrying other people's negativity as though it belongs to you. And without noticing, their emotional weight becomes your emotional identity. Modern life has made this easier than ever. Centuries ago, you could walk away from difficult people and rarely see them again. Today, their opinions follow you everywhere. A message appears on your phone, a comment appears online, a notification interrupts your peace. Social media ensures that even silence is filled with noise. Someone is always arguing, someone is always complaining, someone is always comparing, someone is always demanding your attention. The result: your mind never truly rests. Psychologists have a term for this: emotional contagion. Human emotions spread remarkably like a virus. Spend enough time around hopeful people, and your perspective begins to brighten. Spend enough time around bitter people, and your thinking slowly becomes darker. This isn't weakness, it's biology. Our brains contain specialized cells, often called mirror neurons. They naturally imitate the emotions and behaviors of the people around us. Smile at someone, they often smile back. Yawn, and others begin yawning too. Stand beside someone who lives in constant anger, and eventually you'll feel tension without even knowing why. The people around you quietly become the environment in which your mind lives. Imagine placing a beautiful white cloth into muddy water. The cloth doesn't become dirty immediately. At first, the change is almost invisible, but leave it there long enough, and the color changes completely. Many people underestimate this truth. They think, I can handle toxic people. Their negativity doesn't affect me. I'm strong enough, perhaps, for a while. But even stone slowly changes beneath constant rain. Even mountains are reshaped by time. No mind remains untouched by its environment forever. This is why your surroundings matter more than you realize. Energy is contagious. So are habits. So are attitudes. So our beliefs. Spend years around people who constantly complain, and gratitude begins to feel unnatural. Spend years around people who mock ambition, and dreams begin to seem foolish. Spend years around people who thrive on drama, and peace starts feeling unfamiliar. Little by little, without any dramatic event, your life quietly becomes smaller, not because you lacked potential, because your environment slowly convinced you to settle. There is an old story about two gardens. Both began with rich soil, both received sunlight, both had enough water, but one gardener carefully removed weeds every morning. The other believed there only small weeds, they can't do much harm. Weeks passed. Months passed. Eventually, the second garden became almost unrecognizable. The flowers still existed, but they struggled to breathe beneath everything growing around them. Your mind is exactly the same. Every negative influence left unchallenged becomes another weed. Not all people who drain you are cruel. Some simply live in perpetual pessimism. Some constantly play the victim. Some never celebrate your victories because they secretly fear your growth. Some only call when they need something. Some demand your attention, yet disappear when you need theirs. Some love the version of you that always says yes, but become uncomfortable the moment you begin respecting yourself, the hardest part. Many of these people are not strangers. Sometimes they are family, old friends, long-term partners, people whose names are woven into the story of your life. Walking away from them doesn't simply hurt. It feels like betraying history, so you stay. You tell yourself they'll change. You convince yourself you're overreacting. You silence your intuition because leaving feels selfish. Meanwhile, your peace quietly disappears. The Stoics understood something that modern life often forgets. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your soul. Kindness does not require self-destruction. Compassion does not require endless sacrifice. Loyalty does not require abandoning yourself. Marcus Aurelius ruled one of the greatest empires in history, yet even he recognized that not every voice deserved equal attention. He knew that allowing destructive influences into the mind was like leaving the gates of a city permanently open. Eventually, invaders arrive, perhaps. You've noticed something similar in your own life. You leave one conversation feeling inspired to become better. You leave another questioning whether you're capable of anything at all. The difference isn't always the conversation, it's the person. And perhaps the most dangerous people are not those who openly attack you. They are the ones who quietly convince you to become less than who you were meant to be. They don't steal your wallet. They steal your courage. They don't take your time. They take your confidence. They don't imprison your body. They imprison your potential. One day, you wake up and realize you've spent years carrying emotional burdens that were never yours. You have been solving problems you didn't create, healing wounds someone else kept, reopening, saving people who never wanted to change. And somewhere in that exhausting process, you forgot to save yourself. But here's the truth that changes everything. Walking away is not an act of hatred. It is an act of wisdom. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself, and even for others, is to stop carrying what was never yours to carry. Because the strongest person is not the one who can endure endless emotional exhaustion. The strongest person is the one who recognizes when peace is worth protecting. The question is, why do so many intelligent, kind-hearted people remain in relationships that slowly drain the life out of them? The answer lies deep within human psychology, and that's where our journey continues. Why is it so difficult to walk away? If someone constantly drains your energy, criticizes your dreams, ignores your boundaries, or leaves you feeling emotionally exhausted, why do you stay? Why do intelligent, kind, compassionate people remain connected to those who slowly steal their peace? The answer is almost never weakness, it is conditioning. Long before you learned mathematics, long before you built a career, long before you discovered Stoicism, your brain learned one powerful lesson: being accepted keeps you safe. As children, our survival depended on connection. A child who was loved, protected, and accepted had a greater chance of surviving. Because of this, your brain evolved to value belonging almost as much as food or shelter. Even today, that ancient survival system still lives inside you. It whispers, don't upset them, keep everyone happy. If they leave, you'll be alone. If you're alone, you're in danger. Of course, your adult mind knows this isn't true. You can live independently. You can build new friendships. You can create a peaceful life, but your emotional brain isn't always logical. It remembers ancient fears, not modern reality. This is why walking away often feels terrifying, not because you're making a bad decision, because your nervous system mistakes change for danger. Psychologists call this attachment. We naturally form emotional bonds with people. Healthy attachment creates trust. safety, love. But unhealthy attachment creates dependence. It convinces you that your happiness cannot exist without another person. Slowly, their mood becomes your mood. Their approval becomes your confidence. Their criticism becomes your identity. Their chaos becomes your normal. Without realizing it, you stop living your own emotional life. You begin living theirs. Imagine holding a rope tied around someone else's waist. Every time they run, you run. Every time they fall, you fall. Every time they panic, you panic. You believe you're helping them, but eventually you realize something heartbreaking. You've forgotten how to stand still. Many emotionally draining relationships work exactly like this. One person creates the storm. The other spends years trying to calm it. One person refuses responsibility. The other accepts responsibility for everything. One person takes. The other keeps giving. At first, this feels like kindness. Eventually, it becomes exhaustion. There is another reason people stay. Hope. Hope can be beautiful. Hope has inspired explorers to cross oceans, scientists to continue experiments, artists to finish masterpieces, parents to sacrifice for their children. Hope changes lives, but misplaced hope can also imprison them. How many people stay because they keep telling themselves, maybe they'll change, maybe next year will be different, maybe if I love them enough, maybe if I'm more patient, maybe if I explain myself one more time. Years pass. The conversations repeat, the promises repeat, the disappointments repeat, yet hope keeps whispering just a little longer. Sometimes hope becomes the chain that keeps us trapped, not because hope is wrong, because it is placed in someone unwilling to grow. There is an old story about a traveler crossing a desert halfway through the journey. He found a cracked bucket lying beside a dry well. Every morning he filled it with water. Every afternoon, the water leaked away. The next morning, he filled it again. Day after day, someone finally asked, "Why do you keep doing this?" The traveler smiled sadly. "I'm hoping one day the bucket will stop leaking, but broken buckets do not heal through wishful thinking. Neither do broken relationships without mutual effort. One person cannot carry two lives, no matter how loving they are." Psychology offers another explanation. It's called intermittent reinforcement. It sounds complicated, but you've experienced it. Imagine someone who treats you badly most of the time, but occasionally becomes incredibly kind. Suddenly they apologize. They become affectionate, supportive, generous. You think, see, the real person is finally back. Then, days later, the criticism returns. The distance returns. The manipulation returns. This unpredictable cycle creates an incredibly powerful emotional bond. Ironically, consistent kindness feels ordinary. Inconsistent kindness feels addictive. Your brain starts chasing those rare good moments, just like a gambler pulling the lever on a slot machine. Maybe this time, maybe the next conversation, maybe tomorrow. The uncertainty itself becomes the addiction. This is why emotionally draining relationships are so difficult to leave. You aren't only attached to the person, you're attached to the possibility of who they might become. But possibilities cannot build peaceful lives. Reality does. Another hidden reason people stay is guilt. Perhaps you've heard these thoughts before. They've been through so much. It's my responsibility to help them. If I leave, who's going to support them? Good people don't give up on others. These thoughts sound compassionate, and sometimes they truly are. But compassion without boundaries slowly becomes self-neglect. Imagine trying to rescue someone drowning. If they panic and pull you underwater, what happens? Now there are two people drowning. The greatest rescuers understand something essential. You cannot save another person by sacrificing your own ability to breathe. The same is true emotionally. If someone constantly drains your peace, destroys your confidence, or refuses every opportunity to change, remaining beside them may not help either of you. Sometimes your absence becomes the lesson your presence never could. There is another illusion people carry: time invested. You've known them for years. You've shared memories, laughed together, cried together, built history together. So your mind whispers, "I can't leave now. I've invested too much." Economists call this the sunk cost fallacy. We continue investing in something, not because it has a promising future, but because we've already invested so much in the past. Imagine watching a film you've disliked for 2 hours. You think, "I've already watched this much. I might as well finish it." The logic sounds reasonable, but it ignores one question: will the next hour improve your experience, or simply waste more of your time? Relationships can become the same. Years invested do not guarantee years worth continuing. The future deserves its own decision, not one controlled by the past. Perhaps the deepest reason people stay is fear of loneliness. Loneliness feels frightening, so frightening that many people choose familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. At least they know what to expect. At least someone is there, even if that presence leaves them emotionally empty. But solitude and loneliness are not the same. Loneliness is feeling disconnected. Solitude is reconnecting with yourself. The first weakens you. The second can transform you. The Stoics treasured moments alone, not because they disliked people, because they understood something extraordinary. A person who enjoys their own company cannot easily be controlled. Why? Because manipulation often depends on one fear. The fear of losing someone. Remove that fear, and manipulation loses much of its power. Marcus Aurelius reflected often on the importance of guarding the mind. He knew that every person allowed into your inner world influences your thinking, just as unhealthy food weakens the body. Unhealthy relationships weaken the spirit. He did not suggest hating difficult people. He suggested understanding them, showing compassion where possible, but never surrendering your own character to preserve someone else's comfort. That distinction changes everything. You can wish someone well without walking beside them. Forever, you can forgive without returning to what destroyed your peace. You can love someone and still recognize that distance is healthier than closeness, because walking away is not always about rejecting another person. Sometimes it is about finally accepting yourself. And once you begin accepting yourself, something remarkable happens. You stop arguing, you stop chasing, you stop explaining. Your silence becomes stronger than your words. Your peace becomes more valuable than your need to be understood. And that quiet strength was one of the greatest lessons taught by Marcus Aurelius himself. Imagine standing in the center of ancient Rome. The streets are alive with merchants calling from crowded markets. Soldiers march across stone roads. Senators whisper behind marble columns. Messengers rush through the city carrying news from distant frontiers. At the heart of it all stands one man, an emperor, the most powerful ruler in the known world. If anyone had a reason to be overwhelmed by difficult people, it was Marcus Aurelius. Every day he was surrounded by ambition, flattery, jealousy, manipulation, complaints, betrayal, and endless demands. Thousands wanted something from him. Some wanted power, others wanted wealth, many wanted his approval, few truly cared about his peace. Yet history remembers Marcus Aurelius not as the loudest emperor, but as one of the calmest. How? Because he discovered a truth that most people spend their entire lives missing. You cannot always choose who enters your life, but you can always choose who enters your mind. That distinction changed everything. Marcus understood that the greatest danger was not difficult people. The greatest danger was allowing difficult people to live inside your thoughts long after they had left the room. How many conversations are you still having inside your own head? Someone insulted you 3 years ago, yet you replay the moment every week. Someone doubted your abilities, and even today you hear their voice before every new challenge. Someone betrayed your trust. And now every new relationship carries the shadow of that old wound. Physically, they're gone. Mentally, they never left. Marcus would have called this a failure of the inner fortress. The Stoics often described the mind as a fortress, not a prison, a fortress, a place of strength, a place with walls, a place where not every visitor is welcomed inside. Imagine a great city surrounded by strong gates. Everyday travelers arrive. Some bring food, some bring knowledge, some bring friendship, others carry disease, violence, chaos. Would a wise ruler throw open every gate without question? Of course not. He would examine who enters. He would protect the city. Marcus believed your mind deserves the same protection. Every opinion is not truth. Every criticism is not wisdom. Every emotional demand is not your responsibility. Yet many people leave the gates wide open. One negative comment enters and remains for months. One jealous remark slips inside and slowly poisons confidence. One manipulative relationship crosses the walls and suddenly peace becomes impossible. The Stoics asked a simple question: who have you allowed to rule your inner kingdom? Because every king eventually resembles his advisors. If your daily companions are pessimism, resentment, drama, envy, and constant criticism, how long before those voices begin sounding like your own? Marcus understood that influence works quietly, rarely through one dramatic event, usually through repetition. A single drop of water seems harmless, but over years it can carve stone. Likewise, one negative conversation changes little. Hundreds of them shape a personality. There is an ancient image that illustrates this beautifully. Imagine two wolves living inside every human heart. One represents wisdom, patience, gratitude, discipline, compassion. The other represents anger, fear, jealousy, bitterness, resentment. A young student once asked, which wolf becomes stronger? The old teacher smiled. The one you keep feeding. Marcus Aurelius would have understood immediately. Every conversation feeds something. Every friendship strengthens something. Every habit nourishes something. The question is, what are you feeding? If every day begins with gossip, complaints, and outrage, your mind learns to expect darkness. If every day begins with gratitude, reflection, and purposeful action, your character quietly transforms. This is why the people closest to you matter so much. Not because they decide your future, because they shape the thoughts that influence your decisions. Marcus himself lived through unimaginable hardship during his reign. Rome faced devastating wars. A deadly plague swept through the empire. Political conspiracies emerged. Trusted allies betrayed him. Entire armies depended upon his leadership. Many emperors before him became bitter, cruel, paranoid. Some ruled through fear. Others sought revenge. Marcus chose another path. He refused to let the behavior of others determine the condition of his own soul. One evening, imagine the emperor sitting alone inside his tent after a long day on the battlefield. Outside, cold rain falls across the Roman camp. Soldiers whisper around fading fires. The air smells of wet earth and steel. Marcus opens his journal. Instead of writing about his enemies, he writes about himself, not because the enemy wasn't dangerous, but because he understood something extraordinary. The greatest battle is never against another person. It is against becoming like them. How often does this happen today? Someone speaks with anger. You answer with anger. Someone spreads gossip. You spread more gossip. Someone becomes disrespectful. You abandon your own dignity to match theirs without noticing. The very people who drain your peace begin shaping your character. Marcus refused to surrender that victory. He reminded himself repeatedly, the best revenge is not to become like your enemy. Think about those words. Real victory isn't proving someone wrong. It isn't humiliating them. It isn't winning every argument. Real victory is protecting your own character while others lose theirs. Imagine carrying a clear glass of water through a crowded marketplace. People bump into you. Someone shouts. Someone laughs. Another person pushes past carelessly. What spills from the glass? Only what was already inside. The same is true of human beings. Pressure does not create character. Pressure reveals it. When life becomes difficult, what spills from you? Calm or chaos? Patience or anger? Wisdom or bitterness? Marcus believed your response always belongs to you, no matter what anyone else chooses. That is freedom. There is another lesson hidden within Stoicism, one that many people overlook. Marcus often reflected on impermanence. He reminded himself that every person, every conflict, every criticism would eventually disappear. Imagine walking through an ancient cemetery, names once feared, names once admired, names once envied, now almost forgotten. The people who spent their lives competing for status, where are they? The people desperate to impress society, who remembers them? Time humbles everyone. The person who criticized you today will one day become a memory. So will the praise you received. So will the argument that currently feels enormous. The Stoics used this thought not to become hopeless, but to become peaceful. If everything passes, why cling so tightly to what steals your joy? Marcus encouraged himself to wake each morning expecting difficult people, not because he was cynical, because he was realistic. He wrote that you will meet people who are selfish, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, and ignorant. But then he added something remarkable. Do not hate them, understand them. They act according to what they know, just as you act according to what you know. This does not mean allowing abuse. It means refusing to poison your own heart with resentment. You can keep compassion without sacrificing boundaries. You can forgive without inviting chaos back into your life. You can wish someone healing while choosing distance. This is one of the hardest lessons in Stoicism. Walking away does not require anger. Sometimes it requires peace. Imagine standing beside a river. Leaves float past on the current. Do you chase every leaf? Do you jump into the water because one leaf brushes your hand? Of course not. You let it pass. Marcus believed difficult people should often be treated the same way. Observe, learn, then let them continue downstream. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every conflict deserves your energy. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your heart. Because attention is your life's greatest currency. Where you invest it, your future grows. Invest it in resentment, and bitterness grows. Invest it in peace, and wisdom grows. The emperor understood that protecting your inner world is not selfish. It is essential, for a person constantly surrounded by emotional storms cannot become a source of calm for anyone else. But someone who protects their peace becomes like a lighthouse. The waves still crash, the wind still howls. Darkness still surrounds the sea, yet the lighthouse remains steady, not because it controls the storm, but because it refuses to become part of it. And that raises an important question. If we cannot control difficult people, how do we stop giving them power over our emotions? How do we remain calm when others provoke us? The answer is not found in louder words or stronger arguments. It is found in one of the most underestimated strengths a human being can possess: the power of silence. There comes a moment in every difficult relationship when words stop healing. You explain yourself again. They misunderstand you again. You apologize. They find another reason to blame you. You defend your intentions. They question your character. You try harder. They ask for more. Eventually, you realize something painful. You are no longer having a conversation. You are feeding a cycle, and every sentence you speak becomes another piece of fuel. So let me ask you something. How many times have you explained yourself to someone who had already decided not to understand you? Think carefully. Not everyone is listening to understand. Some people are listening only to respond. Some are waiting for you to make a mistake. Some are collecting your words as future weapons. Some simply enjoy watching you defend yourself. And the more you explain, the more exhausted you become. This is why silence is one of the greatest forms of wisdom. Not because silence solves every problem, but because it reveals which problems were never yours to solve. Imagine Standing before a mirror covered in dust, you wipe it once, twice, 3 times, yet someone keeps throwing more dust onto it. How long would you continue cleaning? Eventually, you would stop wiping the mirror and step away from the person creating the dust. Many relationships work exactly the same way. You spend years fixing problems someone else keeps recreating. You keep repairing what they keep breaking. You keep offering peace to someone addicted to conflict. No amount of explanation can heal a person who refuses responsibility. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that every unnecessary argument steals something precious, not your reputation, your attention, and attention is life itself. Where your attention goes, your days go, your years go, your future goes. Marcus Aurelius wrote private reminders to himself during the most difficult years of his reign. One of his greatest lessons was simple: choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. At first, those words seem impossible. How can you simply choose? But Marcus wasn't saying that pain isn't real. He was teaching that there is a difference between an event and your relationship to that event. Imagine someone throws a burning piece of coal toward you. One person catches it tightly, another simply steps aside. The coal was the same. The suffering was different. The same is true with insults, criticism, manipulation, gossip. You cannot always stop people from throwing emotional coals, but you can stop yourself from holding them. There is an old Zen story about 2 monks walking through a forest after heavy rain. They arrived at a river where a young woman stood, unable to cross because the current was too strong. Without hesitation, the older monk lifted her into his arms, carried her safely across the river, placed her down, and continued walking. The younger monk remained silent for hours. Finally, unable to contain himself, he said, "Master, we are monks. We are not supposed to touch women. Why did you carry her?" The older monk smiled gently. "I put her down at the river." Then he looked at his student. "Why are you still carrying her? How many people are you still carrying? Someone who insulted you 5 years ago, someone who betrayed your trust, someone who never appreciated your kindness, someone who made you question your worth. Perhaps they have forgotten the entire incident, yet you carry it every day, not because they forced you to, because your mind never put it down." Psychologists call this rumination. It is the habit of replaying painful experiences again and again. Your brain believes that if it keeps analyzing the event, it will finally discover peace. But the opposite usually happens. The more you replay the memory, the stronger the emotional pathway becomes. The wound never closes because you keep reopening it. Silence interrupts this cycle, not only external silence, internal silence. The quiet decision to stop arguing with the past, to stop replaying conversations that cannot be changed, to stop defending yourself before an imaginary audience. Have you ever noticed how confident people rarely rush to explain themselves? Not because they don't care, because they understand a truth that insecure people often forget. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Imagine an eagle soaring high above the mountains. Below, crows begin chasing it. They scream, they peck. They try desperately to provoke it. The eagle never turns around to fight. It simply flies higher. Eventually, the crows cannot breathe at that altitude. One by one, they fall away. The eagle wins, not because it fought better, because it refused to fight at all. This is what emotional maturity looks like. You rise above conversations that once strapped you. You stop competing with people committed to negativity. You stop proving your worth to those determined not to see it. Your energy shifts from defense to direction, from reaction to purpose. Modern psychology supports this ancient wisdom. When someone provokes you, your brain's emotional alarm system reacts almost instantly. Your heart rate rises, stress hormones flood your body. Your thoughts become faster, your words become sharper. This is often called the fight or flight response. During these moments, the rational part of your brain becomes less effective. In simple terms, the stronger your emotion, the weaker your judgment. This explains why people often regret words spoken in anger. Silence creates a pause. That pause is more powerful than it appears. Inside that small moment, your mind regains control. Instead of reacting, you choose. Instead of exploding, you observe. Instead of becoming part of someone else's chaos, you remain rooted in your own peace. Marcus Aurelius practiced this repeatedly as emperor. He was criticized by senators, questioned by generals, surrounded by political rivals. Imagine if he had reacted emotionally to every insult. Rome would have descended into endless conflict. Instead, he asked himself a better question. Does this deserve my peace? Think about that question. How many arguments could disappear from your life if you asked it first? Does this deserve my peace? Does this comment deserve my peace? Does this stranger deserve my peace? Does this misunderstanding deserve my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. There is another ancient story that illustrates this beautifully. A student once asked a wise teacher, "What is the strongest weapon against an angry person?" The teacher picked up a bowl filled with muddy water. He stirred it vigorously, then he held it up. "Can you see your reflection?" No, the teacher placed the bowl on the ground. Minutes passed. The mud slowly settled. The water became clear. "And now, I can see myself," the teacher nodded. So it is with the mind when it is disturbed. Truth becomes impossible to see. Only stillness reveals reality. Silence is that stillness, not weakness, not surrender, not fear, clarity. The strongest people are rarely those who always have the perfect comeback. They are the ones who know which conversations are not worth having. They understand that every response is an investment, every argument costs energy, every emotional reaction consumes attention, and attention is your most valuable resource. Imagine, you wake up every morning with 100 coins. Not coins of money, coins of attention. Every complaint takes 5. Every unnecessary argument takes 10. Every toxic conversation takes 20. By evening, you have nothing left. Nothing for your dreams, nothing for your family, nothing for your purpose. Now imagine protecting those coins, choosing carefully where they go, walking away from needless conflict, refusing to argue with bitterness, allowing silence to become your shield. Suddenly, you have energy again, not because life became easier, because you became wiser. There is a beautiful paradox here. People who constantly demand your attention often become uncomfortable when you stop reacting. Why? Because many unhealthy relationships survive on emotional fuel. If you stop supplying anger, the conflict weakens. If you stop supplying explanations, the manipulation loses power. If you stop supplying endless second chances without change, the unhealthy pattern begins to collapse. Silence exposes truth. Those who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries. Those who only benefited from your lack of boundaries will often resist them. That resistance tells you everything you need to know. Remember this, walking away is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply choosing not to answer, not to argue, not to prove yourself, not to carry someone else's emotional storm, because peace is not found by winning every battle. Peace is found by recognizing which battles were never yours, and once you master that quiet strength, your life begins to change. You stop chasing people who drain you. You stop fearing distance. You stop confusing constant availability with kindness. Instead, you become intentional, calm, grounded, like an ancient oak tree whose roots run too deep to be shaken by every passing wind. But silence alone is only the beginning. To truly protect your peace, you need daily disciplines that strengthen your character from within. The Stoics knew that freedom is not built in one powerful moment. It is built through small habits, practiced every single day. Wisdom is powerful, but wisdom that is never practiced changes nothing. You can recognize toxic patterns. You can understand psychology. You can quote Marcus Aurelius perfectly. Yet the moment a draining person calls your phone, everything you learned disappears. Why? Because knowledge lives in the mind, habits live in your character, and character is what speaks when emotions become loud. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They never aimed to become philosophers who simply understood virtue. They aimed to become people who lived it. Every sunrise became another opportunity to train the mind. Every difficult person became another opportunity to strengthen the soul, because they believed something extraordinary. Your peace is not protected by one great decision. It is protected by hundreds of small ones. Let's explore the daily habits that can help you walk away from people who drain you not with anger, but with wisdom. Habit number 1, protect your morning mind before the world speaks to you. Listen to yourself. Most people wake up and immediately invite the world into their minds. Notifications, messages, emails, arguments, bad news, social media. Within minutes, their emotional state belongs to everyone except themselves. Marcus Aurelius did something different. He prepared his mind before facing the world. He reminded himself, "Today I will meet people who are selfish, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and difficult." Notice what he wasn't doing. He wasn't becoming pessimistic. He was becoming prepared. Preparation creates calm. Imagine a sailor waiting for a storm. If the storm arrives unexpectedly, panic begins. If he expects it, he adjusts the sails. Your morning should become the place where you prepare your mind. Spend the first 10 minutes in silence. Read something meaningful. Journal, reflect, pray, meditate, breathe deeply. Ask yourself, who do I want to become today? Because once the world begins demanding your attention, it becomes much harder to remember. Habit number 2, observe people's patterns, not their promises. Draining people often speak beautifully. They apologize, they promise, they explain, they say, "I'll change. This time is different. Trust me." Words are easy. Patterns are expensive. The Stoics judged people by consistent action, not temporary emotion. Imagine planting 2 seeds. One promises to become a mighty oak. The other says nothing, but quietly grows every day. A year later, which one deserves your trust? The one that spoke or the one that grew? Apply this to every relationship. Do not become cynical. Become observant. Watch patterns. How do they treat people when they're frustrated? Do they respect your boundaries? Do they celebrate your success? Do they take responsibility for mistakes? Or do they repeat the same cycle again and again? Patterns reveal character. Promises often reveal intention. Character matters more. Habit number 3, stop trying to rescue everyone. This is one of the hardest lessons compassionate people ever learn. Not everyone wants to be saved. Some people want sympathy without change. Some want advice without action. Some want support without responsibility. Imagine standing on the shore watching someone drift downstream. You throw them a rope instead of grabbing it. They complain about the color. You throw another. They ignore it. Another. They push it away. Eventually, you realize the problem isn't the rope. The problem is that they have no intention of swimming. Many people spend years exhausting themselves trying to rescue those who refuse to rescue themselves. The Stoics would ask, what is actually under your control? Your kindness. Yes, their choices. No, your effort. Yes, their willingness to grow. No, offer help, offer compassion, offer encouragement. But never confuse support with responsibility. Someone else's life is not yours to carry. Habit number 4, create boundaries before you need them. Many people wait until they're emotionally exhausted before setting boundaries. By then, resentment has already arrived. Boundaries work best when they are calm, not emotional, not dramatic calm. Imagine a beautiful garden without a fence. Anyone can walk inside. Some admire the flowers, others trample them. The fence isn't built because the gardener hates people. The fence exists because the flowers matter. Your peace is that garden. Boundaries are the fence. You decide who gets access to your time, who gets access to your energy, who gets access to your heart. Remember this. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may complain when you finally create them. That does not mean your boundaries are wrong. It often means they are necessary. Habit number 5, practice emotional detachment. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood ideas in Stoicism. It does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean stopping love. It does not mean ignoring people. Detachment means refusing to let someone else's emotions become your identity. Imagine standing beside a river. Leaves float by, branches drift past. The current never stops moving. Do you jump into the river for every leaf? No, you watch, you observe, you let it pass. Thoughts work the same way. So do other people's emotions. Someone becomes angry. Observe. Someone becomes jealous. Observe. Someone tries to provoke you. Observe. Not every emotion deserves your participation. Sometimes the greatest act of wisdom is refusing the invitation. Habit number 6. Audit your inner circle. Take a piece of paper. Write down the names of the people you spend the most time with. Now ask yourself honestly, after spending time with this person, do I usually feel more peaceful, or more anxious, more hopeful, or more discouraged, more confident, or more insecure, more inspired, or emotionally exhausted? This exercise is uncomfortable because it forces honesty. Not everyone in your life belongs in your future. Some people are chapters, not the entire book. The Stoics understood that environment shapes character. If you continuously surround yourself with bitterness, bitterness becomes familiar. If you surround yourself with courage, courage becomes natural. Choose carefully, because your future often resembles your closest influences. Habit number 7, become comfortable walking alone. One reason people remain trapped in draining relationships is simple. They fear walking alone. But solitude is not punishment, it is preparation. Imagine climbing a mountain. Some companions stop halfway, others turn back. A few tell you the summit isn't worth reaching. If you stop every time someone leaves, you'll never reach the top. Every meaningful journey eventually requires walking alone. Marcus Aurelius knew this. Leadership often meant standing apart from the crowd, doing what was right, instead of what was popular. The same is true today. Sometimes peace requires distance. Sometimes growth requires separation. Sometimes your future requires saying goodbye to people your past cannot let go of. Walking alone for a season is far healthier than spending a lifetime walking in the wrong direction. Habit number 8. Ask one powerful question whenever someone drains your energy. Pause before reacting, before explaining, before sacrificing your peace. Ask yourself one question. Does this relationship help me become the person I want to be? Not, how long have I known them? Not, will they be upset? Not, what will other people think? Only this, who am I becoming by staying here? Because every relationship changes you, every conversation shapes you, every repeated experience rewires your thinking. Your future self is quietly being built by today's relationships. Choose wisely, the quiet transformation at first. These habits feel uncomfortable. You begin saying no, people notice. You become less available. Some complain. You stop explaining every decision. Others misunderstand. You protect your peace. Some call you distant. Do not panic. This is often what happens when you stop participating in unhealthy patterns. People accustomed to unlimited access rarely celebrate healthy boundaries, but something beautiful happens inside you. The constant tension begins to disappear. Your mind becomes quieter. Your sleep becomes deeper. Your confidence grows. You stop carrying conversations long after they end. You stop trying to rescue everyone. You stop confusing guilt with kindness. Instead, you begin living with intention, and one morning, you wake up feeling lighter, not because every difficult person disappeared, but because they no longer occupy space inside your heart. That is the hidden reward of Stoicism. External life may remain uncertain, but your inner world becomes unshakable, and once your peace is no longer controlled by those who drain you, you discover something many people search for their entire lives: freedom. But before this journey ends, there is one final lesson, one deeply emotional truth that has the power to change not just your relationships, but the entire direction of your life. Because sometimes the most courageous step you will ever take is not toward someone else, it is the quiet step you take back toward yourself. Imagine yourself at the end of your life. Not tomorrow, not next year, but decades from now. Your hair has turned silver. Your hands carry the marks of time. The world that once moved so quickly has finally become quiet. You are sitting on a wooden bench beneath an old tree. The morning sun rises slowly across the horizon. The air is still. There are no emails waiting. No arguments demanding your attention. No endless notifications asking for another piece of your energy. Only silence and your memories. Now ask yourself one question: who walked beside you through life, and who simply walked through your life? There is a difference. Some people became your shelter, others became your storm. Some lifted you when you doubted yourself. Others convinced you to doubt yourself every single day. Some celebrated your victories as though they were their own. Others secretly hoped you would remain small enough to make them comfortable. The tragedy is not that difficult people exist. The tragedy is that so many good people spend years trying to earn love from those who were never willing to give it freely. Think about how much life can disappear while waiting for someone to change. 1 year, 5 years, 20 years, an entire lifetime can quietly vanish, while you keep telling yourself, maybe tomorrow they'll understand me, maybe if I'm more patient, maybe if I sacrifice a little more. Meanwhile, your own dreams grow silent, your confidence fades. Your joy becomes something you vaguely remember. One day you look in the mirror and realize you've become an expert at carrying everyone else's burdens, while forgetting your own heart. There is an old story about a bird kept inside a golden cage. The cage was beautiful. It protected the bird from storms. It provided food. Every day, people admired it. How lucky that bird is, they would say. But every morning, the bird looked through the bars toward the open sky, because safety without freedom is still a cage. Many emotionally draining relationships look exactly like that. From the outside, everything appears normal, perhaps even successful, but inside, your spirit has stopped flying. You no longer speak your truth. You no longer laugh freely. You no longer recognize the person you once were. The cage may be comfortable. It is still a cage. Marcus Aurelius understood something that many people never discover. Life is astonishingly short, not because every day feels short, but because years disappear while we are distracted. He often reminded himself that every sunrise was a gift that would never return. Not to create fear, to create urgency. Urgency to live honestly. Urgency to protect the soul. Urgency to stop wasting precious time on battles that do not deserve your life. Imagine if today were the final page of your story. Would you spend it arguing with people determined to misunderstand you? Would you spend it chasing approval from those who never appreciated your kindness? Would you spend it explaining yourself for the 100th time? Or would you choose peace? Would you choose authenticity? Would you choose the people who make your heart feel lighter instead of heavier? There comes a moment when maturity quietly replaces obligation. You realize you are not responsible for fixing every broken person. You are not responsible for healing every wounded heart. You are not responsible for carrying every emotional weight placed upon your shoulders. You are responsible for your own character, your own peace, your own life. That is not selfishness, that is wisdom. There is another lesson hidden in nature. Every autumn, the trees release their leaves, not because they hate them, not because the leaves have failed, but because holding on would prevent new growth. Imagine if a tree refused to let go. Winter would become unbearable. Spring would never arrive. Sometimes letting go is not loss, it is preparation. Preparation for the life that cannot arrive while your hands remain full of what no longer belongs. Perhaps someone listening today has been carrying guilt for years, guilt for creating boundaries, guilt for saying no, guilt for choosing distance, guilt for protecting their peace. If that person is you, hear this carefully. You are allowed to outgrow relationships that no longer help you grow. You are allowed to protect your mental health. You are allowed to choose calm over chaos. You are allowed to leave environments that slowly destroy your spirit. You do not need permission. You never did, because the people who truly love you will never require you to become smaller just to remain in their lives. Real love does not demand that you abandon yourself. Real friendship does not feed on your exhaustion. Real loyalty does not ask you to sacrifice your dignity. Healthy relationships do not drain your soul, they nourish it. And if someone becomes angry because you finally created healthy boundaries, remember this: they are reacting to the boundary, not because it harmed them, but because it limits the control they once had over your time, your energy, or your emotions. Do not mistake their discomfort for your wrongdoing. Some people only appreciated your kindness when it came without limits. Now imagine another version of your future. You wake each morning with a quiet mind. The constant anxiety is gone. The endless need to rescue everyone has faded. You no longer replay painful conversations before falling asleep. You no longer fear disappointing people who never truly protected your peace. Instead, your days are filled with purpose. Your relationships feel lighter. Your laughter returns naturally. You discover hobbies you abandoned, dreams you postponed, parts of yourself you thought were gone forever. The amazing truth is this: you did not become someone new. You simply removed what was burying the person you had always been. That is what walking away really means. It is not running from people. It is returning to yourself before this story ends. I want to leave you with one challenge, not for next month, not for next year, for today. Take a quiet moment after this video. Close your eyes. Think about the 5 people who influence your emotional life the most. Then ask yourself one honest question: who brings me closer to peace and who pulls me further away from it? Do not answer with guilt. Do not answer with obligation. Answer with truth, because your future will be shaped by what you tolerate today. If someone constantly drains your spirit, set a boundary. If someone repeatedly destroys your peace, create distance. If someone refuses to respect your values, walk away with dignity, not with hatred, not with revenge, with peace. Because peace is not found by changing everyone around you. Peace begins the moment you stop giving unlimited access to those who repeatedly misuse it. So remember this whenever life asks you to choose between protecting someone else's comfort and protecting your own soul. You are not required to set yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm. Choose wisdom, choose courage, choose the relationships that inspire you to become stronger, kinder, and more authentic. Choose the people who celebrate your growth instead of fearing it. Most importantly, choose yourself, not out of pride, but out of respect for the one life you have been given. If this story spoke to your heart, let it become more than inspiration. Let it become action. Today, take one small step toward peace. One boundary, one honest conversation, one quiet goodbye, one courageous decision. Because your future is not created by one dramatic moment. It is created by the quiet choices you make every single day, and perhaps the most powerful choice you will ever make is walking away from what drains your soul, so you can finally walk toward the life you were always meant to live. Until next time, protect your peace. Guard your mind, choose your company wisely, and never forget this timeless Stoic truth. The strongest people are not those who can endure endless chaos. They are the ones who know when to walk away and have the courage to never look back.